Hey guys, it is the 11th of November. It's Tuesday. um, and I just realized I'm wearing the same sweater that I was wearing last time I did one here. So I do have other shirts, I promise. But so Veterans Day, it originally was Armistice Day, and it was created, I believe it was in 1918, and they set it at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. So November 11th, 1918 at 11 o'clock is when, I don't know if they had a bell toll or what it was, but that was the first Armistice Day. And that was to celebrate the end of World War I. That was to celebrate the veterans that fought, and also celebrate world peace. We know how that went. But, um, the veterans, you think about what they went through, you know, and they called it Armistice Day. Well, in 1954, they changed it to Veterans Day because, now you had not just World War I, but you also had World War II. You had Korea, and then soon you would have Vietnam, and then you would have, the all the campaigns across, Iraqi Freedom and Desert Storm, Desert Shield, um, and I'm sure there's others that I'm missing, but you think about all the people that went into, all the veterans that fought and came home. They talk about veterans being homeless. They talk about veterans um, not getting the support they need. Um, I've been to the VA, and I have seen. I remember one time I'm sitting in a waiting room, and I see a gentleman come in. He's all hunched over. He's thin, um, hunched over a walker, and he comes in, sits down, and he's just. I don't even know how to describe it. He had drool coming from his mouth, and I looked at this man, and I thought, he was one time in the military. He was a soldier. Whether he fought or whether it was during peacetime, he was a soldier. They still had to go through training missions. Regardless of whether you're at peacetime or wartime, you still go through training. Um, he was, at one time, he was a tall, strapping man that was able to do so many things. And now, he has been, been brought down to an elderly man with a walker, that has the drool, and I think about that and I think, wow, what are we doing for our veterans? So many people out there do support them. I just read the book by Gary Sinise. Basically, it was an autobiography. Um, but I just read his book, and it was called Grateful American. And I tell you what, it got me so excited. I wanted to help. I wanted to support, whether it was, monetarily, not so much, I wouldn't be able to, but I would go and help him build houses if I could. They would do special houses. They would do um, special programs to help not just the veterans, but also their families. And if you think about it, I mean, unfortunately, it takes celebrities to bring attention to it, and it shouldn't take that. We should be able to look at our veterans and with pride, look at them and say thank you. What you did for us is amazing. I look at some of them some of them go in and they come out just shells of people. They're just a shell of their former self. They look the same, but they aren't, and that happens to a lot of them. And I'm not just talking PTSD. I'm talking all kinds of things, traumatic brain injuries. Obviously there's some physicals. I mean, like, okay, they come out of there with, missing a leg or missing arms or, things like that. I think about that and these people need our support. They need to be honored. They need to be thanked. They need to know that we care. We do. We care. We care about them. I care. I want to know that our veterans, the ones who are putting their lives on the line for us every single day, I want them to know that it's not in vain. It's not an empty gesture. I mean, what they're doing isn't falling on deaf ears. There's a lot of stuff that they do behind the scenes that we never ever hear about, and there's a reason for that. I have heard a few things from Bill that he can tell me. There's a lot of stuff he can't, but the stuff that I have heard, some of it I kind of wish I didn't know. But it's stuff that, there's no way that you or I could be able to do it. And they're out there doing it for us. So, I think about, the veterans in my life, the ones that are still alive. We've got my husband, of course. We have Uncle Lee. My Uncle Lee, well, he's my ex-Uncle Lee, but I still call him Uncle Lee. And then my nephew, Bill's nephew, Thomas. They're all veterans. Whether they're still active or or retired or disabled or whatever. They're still veterans. They're still here, and they're still dealing with what they did for us. So when you see a veteran, whether you know one, whether you're related to one, whether you just see them walking with their military hat, that's how you see a lot of them. Is you'll see, U.S. Air Force or U.S. Marine or, whatever. You'll see that, and when you do, just take a moment, look at this person, whether it's a male or female. Look at this person and really think about it. Say, if this person is elderly, look at them and just say, hey, in your mind, obviously, but just say, what was this person like in the prime of their life when they were fighting for us? And look at them now. So, when you see a veteran, thank them. And I mean, really thank them. Don't just say, hey, thanks. It's probably more than what they've gotten in a long time, but thank them for everything that they've done. Because a lot of them didn't come back. A lot of them are memorialized on Memorial Day. So we want to thank the ones that are still here. Okay? So for all of my veteran friends out there and my veteran family, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. I love you guys. Have a good night. Bye.